Alex, is there any kind of indication or sense who is in charge in Niger right now?
Well, it's definitely the military. And yesterday, it clearly was the presidential guard that had moved against the President Bazoum. And as you just heard from your correspondent in Lagos, the rest of the army has now kind of said that it supports that position as far as we can see, to avoid bloodshed. So the next stage now is the negotiations, the mediation, particularly with the ECOWAS envoy, which has been President Talon of Benin has been mandated by ECOWAS. The chair of ECOWAS is President Tinubu of Nigeria. And Nigeria will be very forthright, I think, about this particular coup. It doesn't want another coup right on its border. And I think the military junta, the putschists in Niamey, are going to have to wake up to that ECOWAS is changing. Because the presidency of Nigeria is changing and has a very different view about how to handle these things from what we've seen in the recent past.
So, Alex, why now? Why this military takeover at this juncture?
Yes, that's such a good question. And I have to say I was wrong-footed only 48 hours ago by saying I didn't see a coup in the near term in Niger. What I think this is really all about is about internal politics. It's about a dispute internally around the head of the presidential guard, who seems to be the brains behind this, General Chissiani, and he had been incredibly loyal to the previous president. But the current president, President Bazoum, had been planning to shuffle him out. He's also coming towards retirement. He was 62. And I think that partly explains what happened in the timing of this thing. It's really bad news for Niger, one of the poorest countries of the world. It needs stability, it needs investment, and it is also fighting jihadist insurgents on several fronts. And so this sort of instability is good for nobody.
Alex, we've seen this sort of thing before. We saw it in Mali, we saw it in Burkina Faso. So is it really all that surprising that a coup is happening in Niger?
Yeah, I mean, look, since 2020, we've had 7 coups in Africa. We've had 5 attempted coups, maybe a few others that you could add to that list. And Niger is not is also a country that's had a history of coups. We only just recently, in 2021, celebrated the first peaceful transfer from one civilian president to another, the transfer from Issoufou to the current president, Bazoum. So you're right, it's a really rough neighborhood. Each coup is slightly different. The putschists here are saying that it's all about the economy and it's about the ineffectiveness of the military to combat the terrorist threat, and so that they've created a National Salvation Council. This does seem to be coming out of the rule book of what we've seen in Mali and in Burkina Faso. But I do think at the moment it's more driven by local issues, although there now opens up an opportunity for external mischief.
Well, let me ask you one thing, because President Bazoum is considered a key Western ally. Ultimately, did that become a liability for him? And I also have to ask you about Russia and the Wagner mercenaries and their role, if they play a factor in all of this.
Yeah, so President Bazoum is certainly has been seen as an important partner for the West, particularly France and the European Union. But the United States has a drone base in Niger, although that's as much focused about North Africa as it is about Niger itself. And with the problems that have occurred in Mali with the junta there, there's been a reconfiguration of Western security focused more on Niger. So you're absolutely right to raise this. But I do think the root causes of this are less about Mr. Bazoum's Western leaning and more about internal elite politics within Niger itself, including President Bazoum as being seen as representative of a minority ethnic group tribe. Now, the question on Russia. Russia is very active in Mali, as your viewers know. It's tried to get involved through its Wagner private military company into neighboring Burkina Faso. And the demonstrations today that we've seen on the streets of Niamey, the capital of Niger, there have been some people carrying Russian flags. But I think we shouldn't overinterpret this at this stage, although clearly Russia is looking for an opportunity. While we're talking about this, there is the second Russia-Africa summit taking place in St. Petersburg. And it's notable that the military leaders of Burkina Faso and Mali are in St. Petersburg. But not only that, there's been Twitter feed, or it's called X now, footage of Mr. Prigozhin, the leader of Wagner, meeting African notables in a meeting in St. Petersburg. So clearly Wagner has still got an eye on operations in Africa, of which it's operational in 4 countries currently, including in Mali that I mentioned.
And we're going to get to that in a second, but thank you so much.